Imagine sitting in front of your TV, watching your favorite show, and then suddenly, the channel becomes distorted. In seconds, you go from watching a normal show to being presented with unfamiliar imagery. You watch in confusion, trying to piece together what is going on before, moments later, the interruption fades away and the channel goes back to its normal programming as if nothing happened. You've just witnessed a TV signal hijacking. You're probably familiar with the most famous instances of this happening, such as the Captain Midnight intrusion and the Max Headroom hijacking, which remains a mystery to this day. But just 7 years ago, a broadcast intrusion occurred which was so eerie that it makes the others seem like nothing. The WKTV Hack. September 28th, 2016 was a typical day in New York. It was the early evening, and the residents of the city were relaxing and watching TV, when, at around 6:17 p.m., something unusual happened. The WKTV news station was interrupted by an emergency alert message. It wasn't just the alert of a hazardous materials warning that was unnerving, but the message that followed was puzzling. Would you, could you, on a train? This seemingly out-of-place Dr. Seuss quote that appeared in the message would later have significant meaning to the many people that watched this, and echo in their minds to this day. No one thought too much of this immediately after the broadcast happened, but they did not know what was about to come. Less than half an hour after this emergency alert was issued, WKTV made a public statement saying there is no such hazardous materials warning and that the message was a technical error. Later that night, they issued another statement elaborating on the situation. They said the message was just a test that originated from FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and it was not intended for public display. Furthermore, they said they are working with FEMA to resolve the issue. But try as they may, they didn't make much progress. In fact, later that night, at around 10:38 p.m., another false emergency alert was displayed. And to make matters even worse, after the news station reached out to FEMA, they replied this test was not their doing. They were equally confused about how this happened, especially since in order to broadcast a message like this, the sender would need the national location code, which only FEMA had. They determined this to be the result of a hack, and started an investigation into how their codes were breached. Strange, but still nothing completely out of this world bizarre, and definitely not as off-putting as some of the other famous signal hacks I mentioned before. But the next day, something happened that was so unnerving it sent chills down everyone's spine nationwide. The words, "would you, could you, on a train," may have been more than just a goofy message by the hacker. The next morning, no one really paid any mind to the incident that occurred the night before. It was around 7 o'clock a.m., and the Spring Valley train station in New York was bustling with people trying to board their trips. One particular train, Pascack Valley Line number 1614, was about to become part of history, and no one knew it. The passengers boarded the train, and it took off at 7:23, preparing to arrive in Hoboken, New Jersey. At 8:45, the train arrived at its destination, but it didn't slow down. It sped right over the bumper block and through the track, slamming into the wall right before the train station's waiting area.
Good evening, and we begin tonight with that horrific crash right at the height of rush hour. That train crashing with no warning. Passengers say it didn't even slow down.
It was horrific. One person lost their life, and 114 others were severely injured. News of the tragedy spread rapidly, and people quickly connected it to the out-of-place Dr. Seuss quote that appeared in the signal hack less than 24 hours earlier. It was one hell of a coincidence, but some people felt this must have been more than just a mere coincidence. Conspiracy theorists flocked to the scene, giving their input on the situation. The theories ranged from the message being a paranormal warning sent from beyond the grave, to the message on screen triggering a sleeper agent to set this tragedy in motion. But one thing that everyone wanted an answer to was, how this signal hack actually happened. Snopes got on the case, emailing FEMA for more information. On October 4th, 2016, a FEMA representative broke down what happened in an email statement. Apparently, the emergency alert system at the WKTV station had been configured to scan a test and development server instead of the production message server. On the day of this intrusion, a developer was running tests and sent several test messages to the development server. Many of these test messages included Dr. Seuss quotes. After this was discovered, the developer momentarily lost his access to the server, while FEMA confirmed there was no ill intent behind this. This would seem to explain how this happened and where the Dr. Seuss quote came from. So the whole event that happened the day afterward was likely just an eerie coincidence. But we know how conspiracy theorists are, so they had another opinion on the matter. One of the more comprehensive conspiracy theories came from this Reddit post on the conspiracy theory subreddit written by Mr. Eastwood. He felt that the circumstances surrounding the Hoboken train accident were too strange to be ignored, and claimed this incident was not a one-off thing. So, just for some more background knowledge on the Hoboken train accident, here's what was discovered in the investigation that followed the event. The train conductor, Thomas Gallagher, claims to have no memory of the event. In one of the black boxes recovered from the accident, it was discovered that 38 seconds prior to the crash, Gallagher actually accelerated the train from 8 miles per hour to the eventual 21 miles per hour that it was traveling on impact. He also attempted to use the emergency braking procedure less than 1 second before the crash. The investigation ultimately concluded that the cause for Gallagher's error was undiagnosed sleep apnea, causing him to be fatigued on this morning. Mr. Eastwood here isn't buying it though. He finds a sleep apnea cause to be strange, given that a sleep apnea screening was part of Gallagher's recruiting process, and they cleared him. He does acknowledge, though, that Gallagher had been a train engineer for 18 years, so of course it's possible he developed it within that time period. He also cites 3 other train incidents that occurred that seem eerily similar to this one. In 2013, in the Bronx borough of New York, a train entered a curve at more than double the speed limit, derailing and resulting in the loss of 4 lives and injury of 61 people. The operator of this train claims to have felt hypnotized just before the crash. A medical examination claimed that sleep apnea was also the cause for this error. Now, I've looked into this one, and what Eastwood failed to mention here was that the train operator here had just been assigned to the morning shift 2 weeks prior to this event happening. So maybe he was just tired. I mean, I think it's kind of a stretch to say this is anything more than what it seems. But there's more. In 2015, a Philadelphia train derailed, leading to the passing away of 8 people and injury of 200 others. The investigation into this one concluded that the operator became distracted by a radio transmission stating a train window was hit by a rock. Once again, the operator has no memory of the events. And finally, we have another accident that happened in Brooklyn in 2017, where a train began accelerating as it reached a station and crashed at twice the speed limit. The operator claims to have no memory of this incident either, but in the 3 minutes before the accident, the train was fluctuating between 2 and 10 miles per hour. The main things Eastwood thought were weird about these were how all of them seemed to have no memory of the event, and the recurring theme of the strange timing of the accelerations. What really pisses me off about this though, is his main conclusion to this. Someone in the comments asked about his personal theory, and he basically says he's unsure before spitballing a bunch of random theories. Like, really? You're just gonna blue ball us like that? All this build up, all that reading, just to basically say, I don't know. I don't even think any of what he wrote was that mysterious. Maybe they all had trouble remembering because they were just involved in a fucking train crash where they probably hit their head. Maybe for legal reasons they just pretended not to remember, I don't know. And it's also not strange that all these incidents involved them accelerating the train at inappropriate times. No shit, if they hadn't done that, the train wouldn't have crashed. But this is actually one of the more well put together theories, believe it or not. Some of these conspiracy theorists just make me want to scream. In 2016, on the conspiracy subreddit, someone made a post saying they are hiding something about the New Jersey train crash. This must be interesting, right? Well, here's what they thought was strange. In the article CNN wrote about this, they wrote that an explosion-like sound was heard when the train crashed. This guy was confused about why they used the word explosion when it was a crash. He thought they meant that there was an actual bomb or something. I'm not kidding. He literally wrote, "This explosion is only stated once in the article, yet it is still being referred to as a crash. Is it me, or did that kind of strike you as fishy? Buddy, let me explain this slowly for you. Big fast object hit big strong wall. Object make boom sound. It's a fucking simile, you dunce. Oh yeah, and then there's this. This guy thought the date and time listed in the signal intrusion included numerology to toy with us. The date 9/29 he took to mean 9/11, since 2 plus 9 is 11, of course, and the time 2/16 he took as a 666 reference, since 6 times 6 times 6 is 216. I genuinely couldn't tell if this guy was joking or not, so I actually messaged them to ask. No response. Listen, this whole incident is pretty strange, but in all likelihood, that's all it is. Don't get me wrong, it's a really spooky coincidence. It sent chills down my spine when I first read about it, but there's probably nothing else to it than that. Some people will insist that there's something more to this because they'll say things like, what are the odds a coincidence that unlikely would happen? But I don't think that's a valid argument at all, given that coincidences like this happen all the time throughout history. For example, in 2002, a 70-year-old man was riding his bike and was hit by a truck on a road in Helsinki. And then, just 2 hours later, his identical twin was riding a bike on that same road and was also hit by a truck and killed. Now that's crazy. And in 1999, a dude named Bill Morgan won the lottery after waking up from a coma, and then a news station covered the story and they bought him another ticket to recreate the scratching. And while he was scratching off that ticket, he won a second time. What are the odds of that? 1 in 600 million? Are these stories more than just bizarre coincidences too? Well, I guess if you're a conspiracy theorist, you probably think that they are more than that, so. Alright, fuck me guys, I'm done. Thanks for watching, I'll see you on the flip side.